With the latest weekend headlines now, it's the ITV News.
The list grows of critical workers who won't have to self-isolate. Frontline emergency services and key transport roles are now exempt, but why can't we all be?
The system has to be fit for purpose to move to that model, and we're just not there yet.
Also tonight, wild weather, lightning strikes here, while China braces for a typhoon.
It is accelerating through its stroke.
Pool perfection, Britain's Adam Peaty still unbeaten as he races on day one of the Tokyo Olympics. And dare we say the summer holidays are finally underway. Staycation for many, but airports, for the first time in a long time, are busy.
Thankfully, we're here, but fingers crossed we get on that plane.
This is ITV News with Chris Shipp.
Hello, good evening. After mounting pressure to increase the number of workers who can avoid self-isolation, the government has expanded its workplace testing scheme in England. It now includes frontline roles in the police, the border force and the transport sector. They will join those previously announced in food distribution, who can take daily COVID tests instead of 10 days isolation. Record numbers have been told to stay away from work by the NHS COVID-19 app. But the testing for those exempt won't begin until Monday, and the hospitality sector is now asking why they are not included. Our political correspondent David Wood reports.
A busy and profitable lunchtime for this restaurant relies on all staff being available, ready to put the finishing touches on every order. But the more staff are pinged, the fewer tables can be served. The manager here says it's important people isolate when told to do so, but he is worried staff shortages may force him to close at busy times.
Of course, with the social distancing before and the short of staff, we have to adjust all the time. And of course, during the last 3-4 months, of course, we have less turnover because of the current situation.
The government has already introduced some exemptions to self-isolation for those in the food supply chain, where contacts of COVID cases will be offered daily tests. As long as they're negative, those people can continue working. And today, ministers are planning 200 more test sites so they can extend that scheme to include police officers as well as firefighters, those who work for the border force at a few ports and critical staff involved in the transport network. But those in the hospitality industry are angry they've not been included.
Teams in venues around the country are being pinged in a sort of blanket way, and therefore the venues are having to close down. And this comes after 16 months of little or no trading, where about £90 billion worth of sales have been lost while debts accrue.
But scientists say for now at least, self-isolation must continue for most COVID contacts.
I think the shift towards not requiring self-isolation for people with both doses of the vaccine is an inevitable next step, and critical staff already. But the system has to be fit for purpose to move to that model, and we're just not there yet.
In the northeast of England, high infection rates are worrying local health officials. An enhanced response is expected to be announced for the area soon, with more testing and vaccinations. Proof England's Freedom Day may have come on Monday, but we are nowhere near free from COVID.
So, David, it's the middle of next month, isn't it, in England, where people who are fully vaccinated don't have to self-isolate, a bit different from Wales and Scotland, but there are now increasing calls for that date to come forward.
Yes, there are, and the Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is the latest senior politician to call for that. He's written to the Prime Minister with industry leaders from the capital, and he's joining a growing chorus of Conservative backbenchers who want that change. One has messaged me to say the current policy is idiotic. But look, there are fairness issues here as well, because At the moment, many under 35s haven't yet reached the time for their second dose of a COVID vaccine. The hospitality industry points out 60% of its staff are under 35, and that's why it wants a test and release system that has nothing to do with vaccine status. But as things stand, I don't think the government is showing any sign of changing its mind. It was put to me today that self-isolation is the last form of defence that we have. The government then not budging, but the calls for it to do so, I think they'll only increase.
OK, David, thank you. Now, the week-long heat wave felt by much of the country came to a dramatic end for some last night as storms rolled in across the south of England and Wales. One house here in Andover in Hampshire was struck by lightning, which caused its roof to collapse and fire to spread to the neighbouring property. A 70-year-old woman who lives there was treated for minor injuries. Her neighbour said you could not miss the strike.
There was this enormous bang noise and flashing of light. I think it woke up the whole street. Went out and looked out, and the house roof was completely ablaze, and then it moved into the roof of the other house as well.
Also in Hampshire, lightning is thought to have set 35,000 tonnes of waste alight at an industrial estate in Romsey. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings for more thunderstorms across the south of the country this evening and again for tomorrow. China is bracing for a massive storm that's due to make landfall on its east coast this weekend. Ports, airports and railways have been shut down ahead of Typhoon Infa, which follows straight after an earlier storm that already claimed dozens of lives. Mark Mallett reports.
It's rainy season here, but nothing could have prepared China's Henan province for the rain that fell from these skies. The country's meteorological authority says the area experienced rare and severe rainfall, smashing historical records. Major roads, even the cars that sat on them, were swiftly swept away in the fast-moving currents. People too. At least 56 lives have been lost, and with many more still missing, that number is expected to rise. And so emergency services work around the clock to search for and rescue survivors, but they know they're in a race against time. Typhoon Infa is expected to make landfall and bring more torrential rain to this stricken region. Taiwan has already felt Infa's true force. And in the Philippines, Infa has intensified the monsoon rains, causing flooding and landslides there. The Coast Guard has been rescuing trapped residents if their homes hadn't already been swept away. And while China braces itself for the arrival of Typhoon Infa, expected to make landfall on the eastern coast tomorrow, another tropical storm is threatening to bring more heavy rainfall and strong winds to the region. Organisers of the Tokyo Olympics will be hoping to avoid the worst of Storm Nepartak, expected to hit Japan in the coming days. Mark Mallett, ITV News.
So organisers in Tokyo are watching the progress of that latest storm, but at the events themselves there's been early success for Team GB in the pool on the first full day of the Olympics. Adam Peaty comfortably won his heat in the 100-metre breaststroke, and there was also progress for Andy Murray on the Olympic tennis courts, but disappointment for cyclist Geraint Thomas, who crashed in the road race. From the Games, our sports editor Steve Scott.
21 years old.
The very first to strike gold in Tokyo, China's sharpshooter Yang Qiang. She also became the first ever Olympic athlete to hang her own medal around her neck, in line with the Games' COVID protocols. Team GB will have to wait, though, for their first podium. It may well come from one of the many Olympic veterans on show today. Everyone's favourite for the 100 metres breaststroke gold is world record holder Adam Peaty, remarkably unbeaten for 7 years. Tonight in Tokyo, he kept that record ticking along. So Andy Murray cruised through to the next round of the men's tennis doubles with Joe Salisbury, and that against the second seeds, an impressive start for the reigning singles champion. Like Murray, Geraint Thomas has 2 Olympic golds, both successes in the velodrome. Here, the former Tour de France winner crashed on the road to Mount Fuji in the fearsome heat and humidity. If fit, he gets another chance in the time trial on Wednesday. On a solid day of qualifying for Britain's men's gymnasts, another reigning Olympic champion, Max Whitlock, sailed through on the pommel, so will get to defend his title in the final next weekend.
Well done!
Max is through.
Helen Glover, who's had 3 children since last topping the podium, is safely through to the pairs semis with Polly Swan. A former teammate of hers, now in charge of funding Britain's athletes, believes when the first medal's won, momentum will build quickly.
Jade Jones is going tomorrow, could be the first woman to win 3 medals across 3 successive games in gold medal in Taekwondo. So, you know, I think we've got great chances this weekend coming, but I think every day we're going to see some absolutely incredible performances.
Britain's footballers are making professional progress.
Cross was dangerous in from Lucy Bronze.
2 wins from 2 now after a largely untroubled performance against host Japan tonight. No medals yet maybe, but plenty still to be encouraged about.
Now, in the city of Tokyo, the challenge of the surge in COVID cases is continuing, and earlier Steve told us how the athletes and officials are coping.
So the first full day of sport, and we're starting to get an indication of what a COVID Olympics might look like. Apart from the cycling, where spectators were allowed to line the roads, there were no fans in any of the stadia. We saw some medals won today, but the athletes had to put those medals round their own necks rather than have someone do it for them. But I think the thing that will be worrying organisers the most is a match had to be cancelled today for the first time. That was because one of the Czech team in the women's beach volleyball tested positive for coronavirus earlier this week, and it's at that moment when matches are cancelled that people start talking about the integrity of that particular competition. All this on a day when it's been confirmed another athlete in the village has tested positive, and also another 17 Olympic-related positive tests have come through, bringing the total over the last month or so to 123. Organisers tonight will be desperately hoping that today's developments are a rarity and not the beginning of a trend.
Steve Scott in Tokyo. Here, Greater Manchester Police have confirmed a missing 11-year-old girl has been found safe and well. She left her home in Bolton on Thursday and was seen on a train to London. She was found there this afternoon and is being reunited with her family this evening. French police are investigating possible human remains found in the Pyrenees Mountains near the Spanish border, where a British woman went missing 8 months ago. Weeks of searching for 37-year-old Esther Dingley found nothing in November and December of last year. And an unexploded World War II bomb has been detonated in East Yorkshire this afternoon. It was discovered close to shops and houses in Goole, and people were asked to stay indoors. Rugby union now, and the British and Irish Lions are in action against South Africa in the first test in Cape Town. Like the Olympics, it's taking place behind closed doors, and it's a tight finish. The Lions lead 19 points to 17 going into the last 10 minutes of the game. Right, finally, for many people, the summer holiday season will feel like it's finally underway this weekend, albeit with a different feel. The last of the UK's schools have broken up, park runs and festivals are back on the agenda, and airports say it's their busiest weekend since the pandemic began. Martha Fairley now on a tentative return to the Great British Summer.
Go! After 16 months away, pent-up park runners around the country were on their marks to get back to their Saturday morning race. It's the first time the free 5-kilometre runs have been held since the pandemic began. And after a week of scorching sunshine, they at least were delighted to see some rain.
Really miss it, yeah. It's a big part of my life. Every Saturday morning, park run, it starts my weekend off nicely. Massive part of my life. I missed it. I couldn't tell you how much I've missed it.
I've missed it so much. It hasn't been the same. But I'm looking forward to it today. And it's brilliant weather. What can I ask for?
But for those trying to escape the Great British weather, the race was on for check-in this morning, with airlines and airports delighted to see queues like these at Heathrow. With 60,000 passengers expected every day here, it's only a quarter of what they were seeing this time 2 years ago, but a sign things are getting closer to normal.
Once we will be on that plane, I'll be relieved, because it's constantly touch and go. Every day there's something different, and you don't know whether you're going to end up going or not. But thankfully we're here, and fingers crossed we get on that plane.
once we felt that everything was as safe as it possibly could be, it's just important to try and get back to some sort of normality, really.
And with restrictions now lifted on sporting events in England, this is the first weekend when crowds like this have been allowed again, with no need for negative tests or proof of vaccination. At Ascot, a chance to enjoy a great British summer, just like they used to make them. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
That's it. Whether you're on holiday or whether you're not, have a lovely evening. I'll see you at 5 to 11. Bye-bye.